It keeps doing this.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome in to our event today. We're going to just turn off our vibes today as we start our session. And so I'm going to ask Yab to turn down the music just a bit. I know the Afro beats got us a little jamming on a Tuesday here. We're going to just transition a little bit towards our presentation. So while we're getting queued up, I just want to say hello, give you greetings. My name is Emerald Green. Pronouns are she, her, and her. I'm serving as our program director for the Black Leadership and Opportunity Center. Super excited, super jazzed to bring this Black at Work panel to you all in partnership with the SJSU Career Center Diversity Career Fair Week. It's the inaugural week, and we are hosting the Black at Work panel. This panel experience is also in partnership with two great organizations who are going to share a little bit more about what they do. Black Honor Society, as well as the Black Alumni Network. So let's get into it. Next slide, please. I just want to share a little bit more about the Black Leadership and Opportunity Center and our mission in serving the Black diaspora and our Black Spartans here at San Jose State University. We're about 3 years old of a center, birthed out of activism, right, and advocacy of our Black Spartans. And we hope to cultivate and empower and instore a positive Black identity within our student community to provide academic and social professional development enhancement and connection to off-campus and on-campus resources. These are a few ways on the slide that we serve students so that you can come familiar with some of our resources. And then here's some information on how you could tap in with the BLOC virtually, in person. We are open physically in the center Monday through Thursday, 9 to 6, and Fridays, 9 to 4. So we want to see you. If you haven't yet dropped in the center, definitely stop by. I'd love to meet you and get connected with your fellow Black Spartans. All right, next slide. I'm going to invite member Denisha Webb from the Black Honor Society to talk a little bit more about their student organization.
Thank you, Emerald. So as she said, I'm Denisha Webb. I'm the Vice President of Black Honor Society. And basically what our club is, we're a dedicated group of students who really focus on professionalism and really just creating a space where Black students can come and be in community. We have career exploration series events where we talk about different career fields such as, you know, the medical industry or, you know, the culinary industry. And actually our upcoming event, which will be our first in-person event, is our career exploration series event in finance. So for this event, we will be discussing financial literacy and just the financial industry in general. So it's going to be a really great event. Come out. It'll be this Thursday at 6 p.m. in the Student Union. And we have other events coming up, like our Halloween event will be on the 21st of this month. We also have an interview workshop coming up, and also a de-stress event. So if you want to, you know, stay updated on all of the wonderful opportunities that we have to offer, you can scan our QR code right here with our link tree. And I'll also put the link to our link tree in the chat as well. And that's BHS. Thank you.
Shout out to Black Honor Society doing some great work. Thank you so much, Denisha, for representing. Next slide, please. Oh, are we missing a slide? There we go. I'd like to welcome Brother Milan Valentin to share a little bit more about his work with the San Jose State University Black Alumni Network. Milan, are you with us?
Yes, I am. And hello there, Black Spartans. Thank you very much, Emerald, for that warm introduction, and good to see you at the helm of this organization. I'm very excited about seeing where things go into your tenure. We're excited to say to all of you that the Black Alumni Network was established in 2014. And of course, our team, as you can see pictured, are the newly elected officers that will be carrying us moving forward to carry out providing our current Spartans with scholarships, internships, connections to Black alumni who serve in leadership and roles that can provide power and influence, on and off-campus engagement, networking opportunities. We want to make sure that we cover the United States and those Spartans who are globally accessible. Fundraising efforts. So if you like to get involved in fundraising, you can contact us. And uniting Black Spartans and working with allies to get access to areas and spaces that our community needs access to. You can look for more information from us by emailing us at BAND, because we're banding together as a community, at sjsualumni.com. More information to come in the month of November. And we are going to continue to come together in order to inspire the next generation of Spartans, get all of you to graduation and beyond so that you could be all that you can be. So let's band together and join San Jose Alumni. You actually do not have to be a member of the university, so you can even invite friends, family, but our ultimate goal is to make sure that we provide a community of alumni that are on this list of panelists, as well as those who have gone already before us to create their careers or in retirement. So make sure that you visit SJSU Alumni Association to find the Black Alumni Network. When you do submit your contribution, make sure that you indicate that you want to be a member of BAND. And that way you can get information going forward. I am the co-president to Carol R. Dixon, the co-president to me. So you'll see either one of us coming around on campus this particular semester. And we're excited to be here as well as to support our current Spartans.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Milan. And there is life after graduation. And here's one of the ways that you all can get connected. Next slide. So this slide is just a reminder. We want to thank you so much, whether you're reviewing now or viewing the recording later, for your participation and engagement in our program event today. We want to make sure that you have the opportunity as a Spartan to opt in into a raffle to win some great perks. So definitely use that QR code that you see in front of you to make sure that you opt in and give us some great feedback about your experience viewing today's session. All right, Yab, if you want to go ahead and close out this presentation and get us pinned up, we'll start the panel. All right, what's up, y'all? This is so exciting. Many of you I've met and I've seen, I went to school with. Some of you I'm just now meeting for the first time. All of you have a phenomenal story, phenomenal journey, a career related journey. And so we want to center some of the experiences with the lens of Blackness today. So I want to invite you all to share who you are, right? And introduce yourselves, reintroduce yourselves maybe to the group, to the folks watching this panel experience later. So if you will, please come off mute and share your name, right? Pronouns, the major degree or degrees that you received from San Jose State University, and when you received them, and then share a little bit more about your current work, right? And kind of maybe anything you'd like to share about how you got to your current position right now, whatever that may be. Some of you are holding multiple positions, multiple hats, right? And so name whatever feels good to you, because we know we exist in multitude ways, right? Multitude identity. So I'm going to start first with Dr. Glenna Anderson. Hello, welcome.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure. Like she said, my name is Dr. Glenna Anderson. I am a mental health therapist with a private practice in Torrance, California. I go by she and her. In my private practice, I work with adults. I specialize in teaching adults how to manage their anxiety, recover from emotional abuse, and rebuild their life. I teach the concept of therapy as a lifestyle. It is the idea of addressing your mental health before it becomes mental illness. And I do a lot. Recently, I had my resume redone and I was like, wow, like we really, I work with individuals one-on-one, but I also work with organizations and I do trainings for a good chunk of quarantine. I did the happy hour. So now there is a 50-piece digital library with 50 different psychodynamic topics, 60 minutes each, that you can kind of go back to my website and review. So yeah, I graduated from San Jose State in 2005. My degree is in social work. I furthered my education in 2009 and again in 2018. All of my education is in social work because I'm a nerd and I'm one of those people that I knew I was going to be a social worker and I ran with it. So yeah, without taking up too much time, that is me in a nutshell. And I'm very grateful and very excited to be here.
We're excited to have you, Dr. Glenna. I'm next going to kick it over to Khalil Estelle. I hope I said your last name right, Khalil, but welcome on in. Please go ahead and share your credentials with us, brother.
Hello, everyone. I'm Khalil. I work at Google Incorporated, and I work on the Wear OS team specifically. So I'm currently wearing the Samsung Galaxy 4 watch, which came out a couple weeks ago, or at least was available a couple weeks ago. It's actually, out of all of our watches, probably one of the best ones. A lot of the other ones are pretty meh. So I graduated from San Jose State in 2017 from the computer engineering department. For the most part, I was always really interested in science and technology, just electricity as well. Like I was always mystified by it. And little by little, some family members kind of helped guide me along. And, my uncle specifically gave me a book on Flash so I could make video games. And I kind of just continued to grow and grow over time. And eventually, I was not even considering going to school or going to college because I was doing some IT work. At some point, I went to SJSU for their open house, saw all the cool things they were doing, robotics and apps and all this other stuff. And I was like, you know what, this is something that I want to do for a good portion of my life. So yeah, it became a passion. And I won't waste any more time. So that's me.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, Khalil. All right. I'm going to kick it over to Ayana Copeland. Hello. Welcome. Good to see you.
Hi, Emerald. Hi, everyone. My name is Ayana Copeland. Professionally, I'm also known as Aya. I graduated San Jose State in 2016 with a degree in hospitality management. I currently work at Twitter as a revenue strategy and operations manager. Given my degree in hospitality management, I was starting as customer facing and then slowly made my way into operations. So really leading the SMB operations team. So the SMB, small and medium sized businesses at Twitter to kind of help them with revenue growth and just some strategic initiatives to kind of grow their business, given that they're a new business unit at Twitter. And the way I got into it was literally just teaching myself, taking initiative to be able to learn things that people don't really want to do at Twitter. And I actually built this position at Twitter. So it's just something that I'm very passionate about and just trying to stay in the technical space and not so much be customer facing, but that's kind of how I got to my journey.
Wow, I'm all about us creating our own pathways. I love the story and I'm hoping you'll be willing to share more about that. I want to welcome in Brother Valentin again. Hello, can you share a little bit more about who you are and what you do in your day job?
Well, my name is Milan R. Valentin, and I currently serve as the Executive Director of the African American Community Service Agency, also known to the people as AACSA. I've been the Executive Director 11 years. I'm with the African American Center for a total of 19 years. I go by he, him, his pronouns. And in my day job, I am the overseer and managing and leading a team of 22 staff members. When I started about 11 years ago, it was a 1.5 staff with really no budget, have operated programs. And so now we are operating many programs. And I'm excited to be on the panel with Dr. Glenna, who is one of our amazing partnerships. I love to provide partnerships with those who are Spartans from San Jose State University. In my capacity, I sit on commissions and committees to make sure that the voice of our community is heard. So Silicon Valley Community Foundation, I sit as an advisor on one of their committees when it deals with what's happening with our community. COVID-19 Black, which COVID-19 has impacted the Black community. So for Santa Clara County, I sat on a committee and a commission in regards to how do we get information out to our community, clarifying information regarding vaccines. With the city of San Jose, I'm on the Health and Equity Committee for the city of San Jose, sitting with city council members and other nonprofit organizations. And there's a host of other committees and commissions that I'm charged with being a listener on, as well as an advocate for the communities that we aim to serve here at AACSA, as well as First Five, as you can see on my right shoulder, I believe, advocating for families and children. Because in the Black community, the family is an important aspect, and family can be used in so many contexts in regards to what family means to our community. And so service at best is what I do.
Wow, I'm just appalled. Oh my goodness, you said so many great things. You are great for this panel, and I'm lucky our students get to hear your story. Thank you, Milan, for sharing all that you do at the agency, and thanks for supporting the community in the way that you do. Last but not least, Darren Woolburn, hello. Come off mute. How you doing?
Good afternoon. My name is Darren Woolburn. I am a SJSU alum of 2014 with my bachelor's, and 2016 with my master's degree in sport management. Currently, my day job is the assistant director of athletics at Cathedral Catholic High School down in San Diego. Prior to that, I was athletic director up in the Bay Area at Palo Alto High School, but being that I am from San Diego, I saw a position that was fitting for what I wanted to do back home. So I moved back home as of 2019. My day-to-day job, I mean, there's a lot of hats that you wear, but ultimately I'm designed to be the leader that I needed when I was younger through sport. So those relationships are built a lot of times once students are on teams, and I see they need guidance or, help with choosing a college, what to study when they get there. So a lot of my day-to-day work is building a relationship with high school students through the vehicle of sport. I would say my nighttime job is I'm the co-founder of the First Chance Youth Foundation, a nonprofit organization that's aimed to provide first chance opportunities through athletics, community building, and education. So, wear two hats, do probably two full-time jobs, but that's just a little bit about me.
Great to hear. I love the growth and glad to see you in these positions, Darren. I'm going to kick it off to Milan to start our first question off. Milan, can you share a little bit about why you were in college? How did you go about figuring out what major or what your career, right, you wanted to pursue? And what guidance or support do you remember having at that time that you were figuring out all these things?
Oh, wow, what a great question. Most people might not know this story, but when I started on college, I think my grandmother at the time was like, "Oh, what do you want to go into?" And I said, "Oh, business." I did take Discovering Business. I think it's Discovering Business 10. And the entire semester, my professor's hearing aid was going off. And I don't know if that was an alarm from God or a source that I was in the wrong department, but I eventually requested a transfer. I transferred to the Communication Studies Department, where I met Dr. Marquita Bird. And when I walked into her office, before I even could say anything, she said, "Welcome home." And I thought that was a powerful introduction as a Black professor. I think she was one of my first Black professors at SJSU. And from then on, I started my journey in the communication studies field. And along that journey, when I first got to campus, I knew to go to the BSU. It was stressed to me by my family that the Black Student Union is an important part of your college experience as far as engaging with individuals, learning different leadership styles, engaging with different people, and then joining my fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi, the Delta Rho chapter specifically, and learning a lot from a fraternity of men from all over, which connected me to the National Pan-Atlantic Council. Other historically Black organizations on the campus, where I got to meet other leaders who had same likeness as far as empowering the Black community, but also we were challenging each other to be our best on a campus where oftentimes we were not seen, but we made ourselves seen because we needed to be. So oftentimes I think I lean on also the EOP program. I got into San Jose State through shout out to all the EOP alums and those who have had that opportunity, where I stayed on campus before I got to San Jose State University to get that college experience and college credit, which allowed me to meet Dr. Stephen Milner. It allowed us to be able to get ahead of the students that were on campus. And so those engagements with the Black faculty and staff, the fraternities and sororities, the mentors whom I was able to meet through these organizations guided my experience, but it also was, they were watching out for me. They were watching out for us. They were able to speak to us in our culture and in our language to be able to say, "Hey, I'm watching you. When will you graduate? How is your major going?" And have those real life experience conversations, as well as getting engaged in things like Associated Students are watching what our university government was doing. Getting involved at that time with it was called the Student Life Center when I was on campus. So being engaged with those folks as well to be able to monitor and train me while I was figuring out what I wanted to do, who I wanted to be. So taking a lot of risk is what I was doing at a younger age, which I didn't realize until now when I look back, as I think I heard Dr. Glenna say, she redid her resume. When I look at my resume, I have to look back and say, I did a lot while I was on San Jose State's campus.
Wow, you did a lot. And so many of those offices you mentioned are now new offices. So students, make sure that you're using what you hear, right? And take back and research and think about what offices are still existing that you might be able to tap into for some of the experiences that Milan has talked about. And then also think about how you might lean into your peers, right? In our student orgs and other ways. I want to invite another panelist to maybe respond to, right? While you were in college, how'd you go about figuring out what to major in or what to minor in? What did that look like for you? Feel free just to come off mute if you're ready.
I'll respond. So I kind of mentioned it. All of my education is in social work, my bachelor's, my master's, and I have a doctorate in social work. And I'm also a licensed clinical social worker. The difference is a doctorate is administrative and has to do with your ability to lead large organizations and to change, whereas the license gives me permission to treat people independently in my private practice. Okay, because people mix the two up. But when I was in high school, even before high school, I was the bully's bully. So I was the one that if somebody was picking on a kid, they would come tell me before they told the teacher. And by the time I became a senior in high school, I kind of read through the course catalog and I realized that that was a profession. Social workers, you know, people that advocate for the underserved, people that go after, you know, the ones that are mistreating other people. And so I knew that I wanted to be a social worker, but even when I started the bachelor's program, I didn't understand the breadth of how vast it was and how many different areas that it could touch. And so I just started out with, again, general BSW, bachelor's in social work. And I came out and I worked as a case worker and I did a few different things. I had an internship at juvenile probation. I worked with kids that were in foster care for a short period of time. And then I worked with kids that were mentally ill with their families. And that's where I realized, I don't want to work with children. That is not my spiritual gift. And I'm very happy with that. But I wanted to work with the adults. I realized that for me, I would get like personally upset when I had to work with children because I looked at the adults like you need the support so that you can better support the children. I don't know if you guys can hear because my gardener just decided that right now was the appropriate time for him to show up. So I apologize if you can hear him being annoying in the background. But it wasn't until I got into the master's program and then I found out that I had a choice in tracks in either mental health or children and families. And I chose mental health because when I worked with the children that were mentally ill and their families, I had a serious interest in what happened and why do you feel the way that you feel and what can we do to change how you feel? Because if you can feel better, then it can change every single aspect of your life, right? I really believe that you can have all the money in the world, but if you are severely depressed, it's all for naught, right? You can have the best health in the world, but if your anxiety is out of this, you know, through the roof, then it's all for naught. And so that's when I went into mental health. And then I worked with adults that were severely and chronically mentally ill, which I loved. And that's when I decided to go ahead and go into private practice. But really, I decided what I wanted to do based on who I was as a person. I just built on that. I don't believe in chasing money. I believe in chasing passion because when you're really passionate and really good at what you do, money will flow. So you don't have to get into professions just because they make a lot of money. Nursing makes a lot of money, but my stomach is queasy, so it was never going to happen. You know, like I genuinely went into my field because this is who I am as a person. I'm really good at what I do. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy it so much that I worked as a therapist for 5 years and then I went into management and then I went back to one-on-one therapy via my private practice. So again, my journey is one that I kind of inherently knew that I enjoyed helping people. And as I took jobs in different positions, that's when it kind of geared me towards certain directions so that I could be more specific about my profession.
Thank you so much, Dr. Glenna. Y'all, therapy for a lifestyle is real. Is real. Tap into the network. I want to maybe invite folks to respond a little bit differently to the similar question. You all started to talk about involvement, what you were involved in at San Jose State, maybe throughout your high school or collegiate experience. Anyone else might want to share their involvement journey and how that might have had an impact on some of your career choices or advancement. And we can open it up to Theron, Khalil, or Ayana.
At least I can talk about things that I was involved in when it came to my time at San Jose State. there are basically two primary things. Well, I guess you can call it three. Number one was the Software and Computer Engineering Society, called SCE. It's in the engineering department. Another one was I became the president for the robotics team for about 3 years. And then the last one was currently, I'm actually a volunteer staff member for the computer engineering department. And I also kind of like, teach certain classes here, some labs here and there. I haven't taught since COVID though, just because it was a bit of a lot of stuff and there's some other professors who want to take over that work. But for the most part, me creating that network with a lot of people in the Society for Computer Engineering, right now called the Software and Computer Engineering Society, and then also getting connected with the robotics team and becoming president and working on Mars rovers as projects. Over the years, like that has very much shaped the kind of engineer that I am now. It shaped the kind of person I am. It has helped me to become a leader because at the most, we had around about 75 people that I was managing. We created an entire structure to make sure management was done well. And all of that was kind of done from scratch because unfortunately with the engineering department, there isn't as much help from the faculty members for the most part, although it is improving. So all of these things from managing the Software and Computer Engineering Society and making sure that, students got what they needed for their classes, they were able to have a really awesome and chill place to be able to, work on things, meet with people, network, strategize, work on projects, and so on and so forth. Those have all been massively critical to my development. So in my ability to have a network, like I still hang out with the same people. There's an SE chat at Google because after I joined Google, I started pulling in all my other friends and kept pulling them in. And now we have like around 18 people. I've contributed at least officially 7 people, but most of the people there I've influenced in some way to get into San Jose State, get into Google. And then on top of this too, I was also part of the dean selection process for the college engineering, and being that close with the dean and also being that close with all the other chairs has allowed me to kind of improve the process. And also I got to see a lot of things under the things that most students wouldn't normally see. So being more involved there got me to understand like, oh, these people are all humans. Even though they're engineers, doesn't mean that they don't have they have their own personalities or have their own issues or are completely logical. It really opened up my mind to how not just this system works, but how a lot of other systems can and will work. So I would say that just reaching out and trying to work in areas where the different extracurriculars that I've worked on very much got me to where I'm at now. If I hadn't done SE, if I hadn't done robotics, if I hadn't done my work with the College of Engineering, I don't believe I'd probably be at Google right now. I don't think I'd be in the spot that I'm at right now.
Wow, thank you so much for Khalil, for your response, for Dr. Glenna, your response, and Milan. It really sounds like you took your involvement in your hands, wherever that was. Some of that might have predated college, but you saw a need, you saw opportunity, you saw ways for community, and you leveraged that opportunity, right, to move forward. And thank you so much for responding. I want to leverage a question that's in the chat. I see you, Carmen. We're going to kick this over to Dr. Glenna. We know, right, and acknowledge that it's really hard, one, to find Black therapists in general, but to find Black therapists that are covered by some of the major insurers, right? And so has that been your experience, Dr. Glenna? And what maybe have you done, or what support might you share? What conversations might you want folks to consider about, insurers maybe more broadly making this more difficult for Black providers to service our community? I hope that question makes sense.
Yeah, so where do I start? There's a couple different aspects of this. You don't always have to have a Black therapist. There are times where what you're coming to therapy for is related to race, ethnicity, culture, cultural upbringing. I always use the example of a Black therapist. You probably don't have to explain that all your mom's best friends are your aunties. You don't have to explain, that if anybody I've known over 7 years is now my cousin. Like there's certain little nuances that you just don't really have to get into. But there are times where whatever you're coming to therapy for, it's not required that you have a Black therapist. And so before you think, no, they have to be Black, before you think that, try a therapist. At one point, I had a white male therapist. And it was completely appropriate for what I was going through in that season in my life. Okay, so just something to consider. You do not always have to have a Black therapist. With that being said, there are absolutely benefits of talking to somebody where, again, you know, we start out culturally, we may not have the exact same Black culture because there's nuances even within our culture, but, you know, we're going to be pretty caught up. Okay, for the most part, we can figure out where we are a bit faster than other cultures. So let me just start with that. A. B, yes, but I don't know that it's like an insurance issue as much as I'm trying to finesse this. Black therapists, we have the option of working within larger organizations. We can work within groups. We can do what I do, which is completely 100% independent. And insurance companies, going through insurance companies, it is an extra layer. And when you are like myself, where I am the opening act, the show, and the after party, it is difficult to go through insurance, and it's much easier for me to actually not take insurance, but it's not impossible. There are websites like therapyforblackgirls.com. I can send this to Emerald and you can send it back out. There is a blog on my website that I will also send to Emerald that you can send to everybody that literally walks you through the process of finding a therapist, questions that you should be asking, ways of keeping track, and right down to how do you know if you should continue with this person or if you should terminate. So I think if you think about it from that perspective, because like in the blog, I talk about why do you want therapy? What are you looking for? And then finding a therapist that best suits it. You may find that, you know, you're dealing with grief. And so grief is not specific to ethnicity. You know, grief is something that everybody experiences. It's not like experiencing racism or, you know, prejudice at work or something like that. So identifying what it is that how you want to benefit from therapy, and then finding a therapist that best meets that need. Maybe they're Black therapists and maybe they're not. And like I said, websites like therapyforblackgirls.com or therapyforblackgirls.com is a national listing site where you put in your zip code and it'll pull up therapists of color in your area. So just some things to consider. Don't necessarily have to be Black, can be Black, but consider more, what do you need from therapy? More so than do I need a Black person?
Thank you, Dr. Glenna, for that.
And if I can add, add a shameless plug in there to that insurance thing, you can also come to the African American Community Service Agency, where we've raised well over $25,000 to provide free therapy. So you can either join a free therapy talk with Dr. Glenna, or you can choose your therapist and let us know, and we will cover it, because therapists per hour could be about 150, which they are worth. But we want to make sure that we cover that cost for you. So if you feel like you want to talk to a therapist or you need a coach, hit up the African American Community Service Agency, and we are your official plug.
Shout out to official plugs. And in plugging that, counseling and psychological services on campus, y'all, I can't stress this enough. We have 4 Black counselors on campus that you can tap into. And so students, you got to utilize these resources while you have them, because like you're hearing, there's nuances to, once you're in the professional realm, how you may access it and to what extent and what financially that might look like. I want to open up this next question to Ayanna and Darren. I know historically, right, both of you working in tech and athletics, that there's some barriers and history of exclusion and oppression that has happened in those spaces. Can you talk a little bit about what maybe barriers you have or currently have triumphed through in being a Black and African-American person within that industry?
Sure, I can start off. So for me, one, being an African-American woman or just a woman in tech has always had several barriers. The way I navigated was like, for the first couple of years of my career, I tried to conform to what the culture was at the companies that I was working for. Didn't work out. But once I started being very authentic and natural of who I was and embracing that I am an African-American woman in the technology space, that's when things started to just fall into place. So the barriers that I really overcame were starting to, one, work harder than most. Like, I feel like just in general, being an African-American person in the workspace, you have to work a little bit harder than most people, or at least the others and your peers. So I was working a little bit harder, just trying to really just focus on what I was doing and what was at, like, the task at hand in front of me, and being very mindful of the people that I would cultivate relationships with within the space. But from there, it became instead of trying to be friends with people around me, how about I just have my work speak for itself. So the barriers I really just faced was not conforming to the norm or like the culture that was around me. And then also of like, I know I have to work a little bit harder in order to be seen. And obviously that's not something that most people want to do. And it's not natural for a lot of people as well. But like for me, it was one of those things where I know my passion, I know where I wanted to be. And instead of me saying or trying to play the victim in the workspace, it's like, I'm going to do what I need to do in order to get to where I need to be. And by doing that, it's really just building relationships with people around you that you believe are natural, and that will help you get to where you want to be. Instead of just trying to like be friends with everyone and all those other things, it's like, no, let me go ahead and learn from others, because when I'm in the workspace, I need to be able to be open-minded. So the barriers I really faced and overcame was just trying to be my natural self and authentic in order to get to where I needed to be.
I'd say for me, some of the barriers that I had was being a Black male, obviously, but the one that was even harder than that I still face presently is the age for my role, because most high school athletic directors are old white men. Therefore, when I walk into a room, or you the football coach, or you the basketball coach, and especially my experience, I think in the Bay Area, because working in Palo Alto specifically, a lot of the families and a lot of the parents that I was dealing with were affluent and white. And so, you know, when I walk in to lead the parent meeting, they're like, "Oh, you're the AD? You this it's me. It's me." So I wish back then I had somebody to tell me, you know, go in first day and be yourself. I think progressing and growth throughout the career is now trying to be a change agent for those people who are now I am older than and who do look like me within the industry, because now what I'm finding as I'm getting experience is the respect has been given in some rooms, but it's the color of the skin, right? Like, oh, this guy's just the football coach and the AD, so he's not qualified. Well, we're more than qualified, because oftentimes it's the people of color who are making up athletic programs, or who are the prominent ones in athletic programs, right? So based on experience, we should walk in with that level of respect, just based on experience and the knowledge of athletics in general. But I think, you know, the ageism thing is the hardest thing. And so I'm really an advocate for people giving opportunity to people who are young, and trusting that they can definitely do the job, because I think as we transition between, you know, the generations coming in and who's coming in and who's going out, there's definitely a clash that I've seen in the education space where ageism happens. And I think more than anything, the barrier that you place upon yourself is just, it's this confidence, right? When you become confident in your role, those barriers seem to be, you know, minimized. So as I've gotten more confident in my skill set, which I was always knowledgeable on, I've become more confident. So now, you know, 6 years into the role, it's definitely, you know, I feel like a veteran, right? Like I'm in the prime of my career. So it's definitely barriers that you could place internally, but for me, it was ageism.
I love that you're bringing those nuances, right, of race and gender and age. And I'm going to even invite class, right, into that. So I want us to talk a little bit maybe also about our identities as Black people, right? We got a certain language, a certain swag, and how we enter rooms and show up at the table. Talk about what you do that allows you to be Black at work. Help the people understand what this tangibly might look like. What are the small and large ways that across industry, right, and disciplines, the panel you all are sitting, how do you show a Black at work? What did that look like?
I'll start. I remember when we had to come back last June 2020, this is in COVID, you know, there was a few staff on campus, didn't get a haircut, showed up, and man, that fro, Mr. Wilburn. Yes, this is a fro. Yes, it's an afro. And I work at a Catholic school, so there's only a handful of us, 3 of us that are here. So I showed up, you know what I mean? And every day, and more than just the external is, you know, I'm the advisor for the BSU, right? So I want them to know that I care about the kids that look like me that are on this campus. But, you know, definitely when it's Black History Month, you know, I make sure that the school knows that, you know, you have African-American presence here on the campus.
I can speak to that. When I first started my private practice, it was 5.5 years ago, my first set of headshots, every time I go back and I look at them, I'm like, who is that girl? Like I had on everything that I thought I was supposed to have on. I had on like a button-up shirt, I had on a pencil skirt and low heels, and I'm holding an iPad, like schedule an appointment. And I was just like, Glenna, first of all, I never wear a pencil skirt to the office. If I ever wear a pencil skirt, it's going to be fitted. I never wear low heels ever. Like, I don't even know where I had them from or where they are now. I don't schedule on an iPad. You need to call me directly because I have to ask you some questions to make sure that we're going to be a good fit. So everything about how I started was what I thought I was supposed to look like. And then there's that partner. And then after a while, I got more comfortable in my role, and I just started showing up as me. And that was one of the best things that I could have done. All of my quirkiness and my humor, and some days I might wear like, I don't know, a dress and pumps. And the very next day I will wear a hoodie and Air Max. And I just learned that my clients don't care about what I have on as long as I'm talking, right? Like once I really got comfortable, and I think I'm echoing what some of the other panelists have said, it's a matter of confidence. I get to show up as my whole self because my education and my skill set stands. So it really doesn't matter. I can have my hair like this. I can wear my hair wet and wavy. I can wear blue braids, rainbow braids, locks, whatever I want to do, I can do it because what I do stands. And I think that like, that's my example of kind of being Black at work. Just, I am Black. And so I just get to show up as my whole self.
I think for me and my team here, we show up to work Black, Black, and Black. Only difference here is we are now, looking at how white supremacy impacts Black organizations. I think to Glenna's point, right, what it looked like. I actually liked wearing suits. And my mother and my grandmother and them said when I was a kid, I always was putting on suits. But when we look at the duality of and the uniqueness of our community, it is always that Black women could come to work, or any of our staff for that matter, with their hair any kind of way. And that they would be accepted in this space for who they are, but also creating and breaking down barriers within our own community's judgment. And that's the beauty of working for Black people, with Black people, and around Black people, is that when they walk into work, they know that I'm making sure as an executive director that I'm creating that space for them to be authentically themselves and are challenge that status quo. And so Black at AACSA is Black at AACSA. And then when they go into these other rooms, their authenticity shows up when they're advocating for families, when they're advocating for, when the Crown Act was on the table for the state of California. And now that we see that it's transforming in different states in America. So it's exciting to work with your people, for your people.
Yeah, so I've actually been just kind of thinking about this for a while, and for the most part, I'll bring one little bit of context, or just one little bit of information. Is that like when it came to like going through computer engineering, or just most engineering actually at San Jose State, you'll find out there aren't that many Black people. Like I think for my generation graduating, I was one of the two out of all my classes. There's probably one other Black guy, and usually no Black women that they weren't around, unfortunately. So I want to say, like, I would actually say that there weren't any barriers for me being myself for the most part. And I think that just comes down to the fact that, honestly, and I'm just gonna bring this up, it's like I'm in California and I went to San Jose State, a place that's honestly pretty good when it comes to diversity. We had some issues here and there, but everyone was really welcoming. I go to Google. Google's one tries its best to pander to the idea that they're super diverse. And honestly, they are. So I've kind of always been in situations where I could just be who I am and be Black and have my dreadlocks and a little mo, like with my head shaved, and no one's really gonna bat an eye. I get questions asked about it, like, hey, how do you maintain your hair? How does that work? And I'll go over that. And to me, some people get bothered. I'm like, sure, I just want to answer. It's just a little small talk here and there. But for the most part, I would actually say that, like, at this time in our society, even though there's a lot of craziness happening in the world, we're in California, and we're in one of the most open and diverse areas in California, possibly even just in the world, barring London and some other places like that. and you can find some places where you feel a little more restricted, but even in like my other smaller companies that I worked for that were, you know, mostly older white men who work there, I never got the feeling that they had any issue with me when it came to my Blackness, which I'm really thankful for. So I'm actually just thankful for the fact that, like, you know, people are starting to progress in our world. So maybe not like, you know, the answer maybe expecting, but for the most part, it's worked out pretty well. And I think tech's getting better, but it still needs a lot of work, especially in a lot of other areas.
Thank you for sharing that perspective, Khalil. I know that there's nuances to how many of us might experience, right? The disciplines and the fields that we occupy and the roles that we have and how Blackness is held or not held, and where microaggressions or macroaggressions lie. And so there's some nuances, there's some complexities there. And I love that you all have a different approach and what you're thinking and what you've experienced. I want to talk a little bit about breaking into the industry. So, right, were you ready to be in the role that you have now, post-graduation? Tell the people what it looks like or what it might take, what skills or assets they need to really break into the industries that you all are occupying right now. A lot of folks don't see the other side of the tunnel, right? We see the degree, but we necessarily don't know how to get from degree to salary, degree to role. So talk to us a little bit about what that might look like, what advice you might give to students who are interested in breaking into your industry.
All right, so I'm gonna jump right into this one because I talk about this literally all the time, nonstop. So I'm still a mentor for a lot of students at San Jose State. So anytime I see students who need help, at least in the engineering area, but I think this really works for everyone else as well. Number one, do internships. Actually, if you're not in engineering, this is probably one of the best ways, like just going to their career fairs for your major will make it almost a shoe-in for you to get the jobs because almost no one goes to those career fairs. My ex-girlfriend actually worked for the career center, and she asked me, like, why is it that all the engineering career days are packed, but all the other ones, there's barely anyone there? And this comes down to how we're kind of wired here. We're always wired to get out to industry, get that experience, and from there, it'll allow you to get a full-time job later on. So we're kind of taught that from every single one of our classes from start to finish. So it's in our heads. So one is getting your internships. Another one is don't treat school like it's just like high school, like, oh, I'm gonna take this little class, I'm gonna forget it afterwards. This is your career. You're putting money into this. Really think about what you're learning and try to get a little deeper into it. Don't just stop at the classwork on its own. You need to push further. On top of that as well, one of the things for me, one of the questions here was, you know, like, did you feel ready when you got to the workplace? And I hate to sound like that guy who's like, oh, I had everything all figured out. But for the most part, because I grinded so hard for like my robotics team, we went into international competitions every single year, and only like, you know, the top 30 student groups could get in there, and like usually be 100 of them each year. After going through that, after like 3 years and having like 5 years of college experience and just grinding and working on projects and trying to deeply understand my subject matter, I felt I had a certain confidence about me that I was able to utilize to get anywhere. And really, the big thing here is when you go into your interview, if you have that confidence, you may not know all the material, but if you have that confidence, it's gonna make the other person go like, I can trust this person. I think this person will work well at my company. And it'll help you get past those interviews. Also, your network. Oh my God, your network is massive. If you don't have a network leaving school, you're honestly messed up, traumatically. It's actually one of the reasons why most of my old students, when I was teaching classes, don't have jobs yet, or having really like, you know, jobs that they didn't want to have because they did not utilize their network. And even if you have one, don't be afraid to say, hey, I know you're working at this one place, y'all got any other positions? Because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to bother them. I don't want to be a burden. I want to be a pester. No, you bother them. You get into their work, you get that experience, and you try to climb up. Too much of us, especially Black people, are so afraid to try to reach out for help because we're afraid that, you know, we'll look as if we're needy and that we can't do things on our own. Well, that's what a network's for, is to help leverage each other up. Because, hey, I'm Black. I was one of the first people of my group to come into Google. And I brought all my other friends, whether they're from Africa or, you know, they're from Taiwan or from wherever else. So leverage your network and grow your network. And they will help you to pull you into places, and you'll probably help them to pull them into places as well. I'm pretty sure I'm missing a whole bunch of stuff because I usually I have a lot more stuff to go into, but don't want to take up too much time. Also, I'm going to take a quick break. I need to find a charger for my laptop.
All good. Thank you. Any other panelists want to weigh in on this one?
I'll jump in.
Oh, I was going to answer really, my short answer is yes, as a social worker, yes. I own a business. No. Was I ready for, no, I was not ready. When I quit my job and the first day that I opened my office and I was like, I'm in private practice. I own a business that did not fully register. That did not fully, it was like, oh, I'm in private. No, Glenna, you run a business. And no, I was not ready. And I cut my teeth for like the first 6 months. No, I was not. Let's be clear. But God will provide. And I work really, really hard. So I say all of that because I've been in business 5.5 years. Now I provide for my family on what I do. But I learned because I was out there, I was off the boat, and it was like, girl, you gonna sink or swim? And I was like, we're gonna flounder for a little bit, and then we're gonna figure it out. And what he just said about networking is absolutely true. Milan mentioned that I do work with AACSA. I'm on this panel because Emerald called me, and I told her the answer is always yes. Like there's certain people where the answer is always yes. And networking is not shaking hands and making business connections. Networking for me is we have to have a relationship. I don't care what you do. I don't care. You can be Diddy. If I don't like you as a person, I will not engage with you. So networking is on a personal level. But I own a business. No, I was not ready, but I got ready because once I was in it, I had no choice but to figure it out.
Ayanna, I think you were wanting to respond. I just want
she
to
did.
invite you to come back in and then we'll kick it to Milan. Okay, Milan, how about you just hop in, and Ayanna, when you're ready, we'll kick it to you.
Yeah, most of the times what we hear is a misconception when it comes to nonprofits. Nonprofits are businesses. And oftentimes we hear people say, oh yeah, I want to come back and give back to the community. I'm like, this is a 24/7 job. I'm 11 years into being a nonprofit executive director, and I got involved through community, getting involved. And then I learned, wait, you can actually work in the nonprofit industry. While I was at San Jose State University, I went to Target had an internship while I was in college. My last year to learn how to be a Target manager. I did that and I was like, man, retail's not for me. I started to advocate for the people while I was working for Target. I know they probably were looking at me like, who is this? Then I went and I worked for Google for a little bit in their maps department. And I was like, I want to get out there with the people. And I didn't realize at that time when I joined AACSA as a student board member that I was getting skills that you can learn for any organization. How does a board work? What are Robert Rules of Order? How to fundraise, how to write grants, how to go speak to your public officials whom we pay taxes to, and learning how these systems were built around us in order to empower us, break them down and rebuild them again to work for us. And all in the same, when I got my job, I actually said, what the hell did I get myself into? Because in the nonprofit industry, you actually also in some parts have to raise your salary for grants and for funding and have multiple streams that we're not a Google. Shout out to the folks at Google that do support the agency through our STEAM on Saturday program. But in the nutshell, in the very beginning, I went to executive directors one-on-one through Compass Point. And I had to really research and learn how to do my job. And then also when you look at philanthropy, and any of you young people can become philanthropists, you could donate $5 a month and call yourself a philanthropist. So you can just donate to any of your nonprofits or any of the nonprofits and start your journey and your portfolio as who you give to. Where did you start at? And what I had to learn was if you volunteer, that is still money, that is still resources, because we would have had to pay somebody to do that work. So I had to learn all of these different facets of running a nonprofit. And then a nonprofit, you get trained in marketing, you get trained in speaking in public. And you also get trained in learning and knowing your audience when you are out in the community. For many of you who live in cities, if you have a sports team in your city, most sports teams that are in cities are required to give money to the community that they're located in. So it's all also about learning about resources when you get these kinds of jobs. But I didn't know all of that my first 2-3 years. I was like, okay, I need to make a different decision here because my parents were like, hey, that nonprofit job is not gonna pay off those student loans. And y'all trying to stay away from student loans and Joe Biden make it happen. So that's my quick plug for the nonprofit industry is that you also, young people, can volunteer by utilizing your major at a nonprofit, because most of the times when you go to these companies, they're gonna ask you about what experience do you have? what better way to go to a nonprofit and say, I'm a marketing major, can I work with your social media for free? And put together the plan for the nonprofit, because executive directors don't always have a lot of time to hear the plan, but if they see it and you can implement it, you can already be ahead of the game. It was one of the things that separated me from my peers was I had so much community service volunteer hours and experience that I was competing against people who had higher GPAs, but they didn't have my experience. And so young people can lean on the nonprofit arm by getting experience, and then you might fall in love with our work, advocating for families, advocating for students, creating programs. And that led to opportunities. If you look up George R. Roberts, who is a venture capitalist for KKR, in 2016, when I went to him, was a breaking point for AACSA. And I asked him for our first six-figure grant. And him being on the billionaire list, it was, fight or flight, or what was it gonna be? And I made the ask and he believed in me, and it was a one-time grant, but he's been funding the agency since 2016 as a billionaire. That I walked into that room afraid, but I had learned in the beginning, what did it feel like when I first became the executive director? And that was my ancestors went through so much for me to be able to learn that I can get through this to make it happen. But also don't give up on yourself when you make those decisions and you are afraid.
Come on, Ancestry. It's not on you, it's in you. Yes, I love that. Shout out to Nipsey Hussle. And I love that y'all talked about, I am the marketer, I am the HR, I'm the PR, I'm doing all the things, right? And Ayan, I know we watched you for a little bit. Anything you'd like to say as our last panelist for today, speaking on this subject, how the subject, how do you break into the industry?
Yeah, sure. I can try to make it as short as possible. I know we only have about a minute left. But for me, I was able to double my salary in the past year. And the reason being is, one, I was passionate. So you could continue to hear from all the panelists saying, like, passion is really where you're going to get yourself to, like, where you want to be and where you truly deserve. Also the confidence. So I was able to build like mental toughness and be able to navigate through that adversity, working in technology and also switching from a customer facing role to behind the scenes and actually creating the strategy for a large company like Twitter. So I think like if you just have the confidence, and obviously it's hard to build, but if you continue to work on yourself and do that, breaking in the industry is all about like what you put out, and whatever you put out is what you're going to receive. So if you continue to work hard, you're going to also get like, the benefits and the stuff that comes with it, as long as you continue to like, take every test and be able to pass that test each day, versus like using that test as like, oh, I failed, let me try again tomorrow. It's like, no, just continue doing what you need to do in order to push forward.
Thank you so much. And I'll also, to close it out, would just add, it's not who you know, but who knows you, right? Who have you met today? So I'm going to ask all the panelists, can you just drop in the chat, where can our students find you, your work? Can they connect with you on LinkedIn? Drop your credentials, your @ in the chat. And students, as you are just kind of taking all this in and listening to panelists, just a couple reminders, right? Use the Career Center this week. This inaugural Diversity Career Fair Week is meant for you, meant for our students of color, our Black, BIPOC, right students, to further your career enhancement. Utilize the BLOC, join great organizations like Black Honor Society, like the Black Alumni Network. But whatever you do, show up for you, right? Put yourself out there, bet on you, and have confidence. Thank you so much for joining us today. I want to thank our esteemed panelists for your words of wisdom, your gems, your oohs and your ahs. We got a lot from you all today. Thank you for existing in the work that you do. And again, shout out to Denisha and Yaab on the ones and twos behind the scenes, holding it down for us, because this is a pandemic lifestyle, and this is how we are adapting and engaging. So I send y'all greetings again. Thank you on behalf of the BLOC, the Career Center, for your time. Peace out, y'all. Peace, love, and hair grease. And I hope that you all have a great evening. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Emerald and team. Have a great day.
See you guys. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Smarten up.
Oh my God, you're doing an amazing job, Emerald. I just have to throw that out there. Like, oh my God.